regular meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to recognize that all board members are present with the exception of Bruce Renner, but he should be joining us within 20 to 30 minutes. So at this time, please, or not join me, but we'll have Ms. Bledsoe will come forward for our pledge.
Dr. Frederick, good evening. Tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Jacqueline Hilt, a senior at Parkview High School. Jacqueline, if you want to come forward. She's accompanied tonight by her counselor, Taylor Ormsby, so we appreciate her being here to support Jacqueline tonight. Jacqueline was selected to represent Parkview because of her outstanding accomplishments and the example she's set for others. She is co-president of Parkview DECA and manager of the Viking Venue, which is a school-based enterprise. She's president of National Honor Society, vice president of Women's Chorus, and secretary of Mu Alpha Theta. Jacqueline has also been involved in Viking soccer, cross country, Key Club, World Language Club, and Science Olympiad. She recently won the local and district competitions in the VFW Voice of Democracy Essay Scholarship Contest. And Jacqueline balances all of these activities and commitments while managing a rigorous course load, and she is now ranking number 15 in a class of 300 at Parkview. So she's very well-rounded in her activities and her academics as well. And following graduation, she plans to attend a 4-year university and major in engineering. So we appreciate Jacqueline and the example she sets for our other students. And I ask that you stand while she leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
For our Honoring Excellence segment this evening, we have 2 celebrations to share. One honor has been bestowed upon one of our students, and the other is recognizing one of our distinguished principals. So first, let me introduce you to Raven Augustine, a senior at Central High School. Raven was named the 2016 Youth of the Year by Boys and Girls Clubs of Springfield. This is one of the highest honors that a Boys and Girls Club member can receive, and it recognizes Raven's outstanding contributions to her family, her school, community, and her Boys and Girls Club unit. Raven is accompanied tonight by her mother, Jessica, so we appreciate her taking time to be here. Raven's been a member of the Stallnaker unit for 13 years, where she is involved in Torch Club, Keystone Club, peer-to-peer mentoring, and she also volunteers at the kitchen. She is described as caring, determined, hardworking, and a student who is always willing to lend a hand to those in need. She will be advancing to the state competition later this spring, where she says she's already having to hone her public speaking skills because she'll be delivering some speeches and has had to write a number of essays. So she will have that opportunity to be recognized as the State Youth of the Year. After graduation, she wants to become a pediatric nurse, specializing in neonatal intensive care. So we congratulate Raven tonight for her outstanding accomplishments. Finally, it's my pleasure to recognize Glendale High School Principal Dr. Natalie Caldwell. She has been selected by her peers to receive the Missouri Association of Secondary School Principals Walsworth Consummate Professional Award. One principal is selected from each of 8 divisions throughout the state for this honor, and they will be recognized March 22nd, 21st at the spring conference. Here are just a few of the criteria a principal must meet to be considered for this honor. Their contributions to the school and community, demonstrating leadership in improving student achievement, demonstrating leadership as a principal and toward the MASSP, ensuring that the school climate is positive and reflects high staff and student expectations, is respected by students, colleagues, parents, and the community at large, and serves as a mentor to new principals. Along with her recognition, Dr. Caldwell will also receive a $500 scholarship that she can award to a student at her school. So I'm sure she's looking forward to that. So we honor her this evening and congratulate
Thank
her
you.
on her award.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to lead Glendale High School. It's a dream job, and I appreciate your support and faith that you put into me. And I just hope that I always represent SPS as a consummate professional.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for everyone that was here. We have so many excellent staff and students to recognize, and this is I think the most fun part of our meeting is this opportunity. So now I'm going to move into the business piece, and that is approving our agenda for this evening. Do I have a motion that we approve the Tuesday, March 15 Board of Education regular session agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Jean Twitty, do I have a second? Annie Bush. And please vote at this time. Voting is complete. We're moving on to our public comments to address agenda items. And at this time, we welcome comments from the audience about issues being discussed. And they're limited to 5 minutes, if at this time that they reflect our agenda. So, Mrs. Luton, do we have any speakers for this part? Okay, thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda minutes. In addition to our consent agenda financial and our consent agenda personnel. The Board of Education, typically we put these three together, and we will vote on the approval of minutes, agreements and change orders, and personnel elections, promotions, terminations. So at this time, do I have a motion that the board approves 3.01, 4.01, and 5.01?
So moved.
Thank you, Tim Rosenberry. And do I have a second? Jill Patterson, thank you. So we'll now vote. Okay, moving on to 6.01. This is our treasurer's report. Ms. Embree.
Good evening. I'd like to cover with you just a few highlights that are also noted in the items of interest report. Our standard information provides you with the budget amendment, and for this month, we're asking you to approve an increase of $4,000 in expenditures, and that's the net of 5 or 6 different items. The revenue side, we're bringing nothing forward for this evening's consideration. If all revenue and all expenditures occur between now and June 30 as budgeted, we will end this year with a 16.39% fund balance percentage. And in comparing that to last year at June 30, it was 16.96. So we do see a slight decrease in that, and that's to be expected. I want to comment about the surplus property report. I don't know that I've really talked about that much during a meeting, but we began posting that over a year ago, and we do have a board policy that expects that surplus property be posted, and I think that that's primarily focused on real estate surplus property, but we also are providing for you each month anything that we're selling through GovDeals. And for your understanding, the list that's provided, it doesn't get posted on GovDeals until it's been approved at this meeting. So once this is approved, then it will be posted on GovDeals, and as soon as the items are sold, then those transactions close out, and then there would be nothing available to view. So there's a very narrow window of time dependent on whomever may be out there purchasing items. And GovDeals works much like eBay, but it is a mechanism that's available for governmental entities for removing surplus property that might otherwise be considered trash. Our other option would be to hold an auction, which is very labor intensive and costly.
I ask
We have a question?
Just
Sure.
curious, what's the success rate in selling these things online? Do you have a lot left over, or?
You know, I probably should pull some data to help support that, but my perception is that it's very successful. It's amazing how one person's trash is another person's treasure, and oftentimes, you know, the price point isn't very much, but we are able to operate this at no cost to the district because the person purchasing pays the fee for that transaction. So it's really the best option for us.
Including the transfer of the product to them.
Right, they are required to pick it up. Mhm. Great question. I believe that the other thing I would comment about is just a highlight again that we are posting our bond financials each month and providing the actual construction update on a quarterly basis. And as the financials are currently presented, we are anticipating just under $2.6 million of unallocated bond funds, and that will be part of a conversation in the upcoming months with you with regard to how we might utilize those funds. Are there any questions?
Okay, questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion that we approve the treasurer's report for March 15, 2016?
So moved.
Thank you. Annie Bush, do I have a second? Second. Thank you. Jill Patterson. So at this time, please vote. Thank you. Voting is complete. Moving on to 7.01 Foundation for Springfield Public Schools update.
Thanks so much for having me tonight. It's always a pleasure to update you guys on what we have going on at the foundation. So first thing, I want to invite all of you to our Teacher Appreciation Banquet that is just about a month away. You'll receive a formal invitation as well, but that is coming up, and it is our biggest fundraising event at the foundation. It helps us provide support to be able to carry out our mission and provide academic resources for students across the district. It is a largely attended event. We have about 800 to 900 people there every year, and it is a great way to show the teachers that we appreciate them. Because of the generous support of our sponsors and school PTAs, no teacher has to pay to attend that event, so that's also a great part of that event. So I encourage you to attend if you can, and we'd love to have you. Secondly, I wanted to give you a quick update on our Back to School grant program. So most of you are familiar, that is our biggest program. That is what provides support to teachers for grants. So this year alone, we provided over $200,000 to classrooms to provide a variety of projects. Every few years, we like to evaluate that program, look at the application and look at the categories, and try to keep those in line, not only with what we're hearing from teachers, but also with the direction that the district is heading. So from visiting with administration and hearing from principals and teachers, we have made some changes this year to kind of stay in line with your new strategic plan and some of the focuses that you have as a district. So what the current categories are innovation, engagement, collaboration, and then of course our reading roundup library grants. So the library grants will remain the same as those are specifically for librarians. The difference is we have added a few categories and changed the names. Ultimately, not a whole lot will change as far as the service that we're providing. These things typically pay for things that stay right in the classroom and benefit a student's academic experience. So the new categories will be classroom projects, student experiences, modern learning devices, community engagement, and professional development. So they will hopefully be more clear for the teachers, and we'll be making a few adjustments to the actual application as it was in the past. It was related to the district's learning model, which is no longer relevant, so we're making some changes to that just to stay in line with the focus. And those categories will go into effect for this year's grant cycle, which will start promoting in about May. So we'll see a lot of applications through that. Also, we are in the midst of scholarship season. So in addition to our grant program, we also have a scholarship program. The foundation manages 162 different funds. 107 of those are scholarship funds. The majority of those are permanently restricted funds that are chosen at the school site. So those scholarships are chosen by school committees, with the exception of the district-wide scholarships, which are chosen by a foundation committee. So this year, we are slated to award over $121,000 to graduating seniors. So another great thing for us, and it provides a great service to our students. Finally, I want to thank Dr. Jungman for participating in the Foundation Strategic Planning Session, which we had back in January. That was much appreciated. Our board has spent the last several months putting together our new strategic plan, which we have come up with 3 main areas of focus. That will be expanding funding and donor base, stakeholder development, and improving educational opportunities and outcomes in the SPS community. So as we delve into that over the next several months, I will look forward to keeping you updated on that as well. And finally, I just want to thank the Board of Education for your support of the foundation. We are so appreciative of that partnership. We are very appreciative of the teachers and the principals and the administration that work so closely with us, and we simply couldn't do it without you, so we appreciate you very much. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any comments or questions?
So I was thinking maybe you could get a helicopter to bring us into that teacher appreciation event, because what I remember is it was so wonderful, but it took me like 15 minutes to get out of that parking lot. So I'm coming back. But
The
I'm not gonna
Oasis
find-
is not the greatest about getting you out. I'm not sure that we have a helicopter in the budget.
Thank you.
We can carpool.
Yeah, carpool is a good idea to that.
Yes, we should carpool.
Good. Thank you very much for that update. It's always great to hear what's going on with the foundation. Okay, moving on to 6.02, Fremont Elementary School update. Dr. Anderson.
Good evening. It's great to be with you to share some great things going on with our Fremont project and the directions that we're headed there. So we want to, with Fremont, we recognized early that we have an opportunity to create changes that support different learning experiences. And the thing that we're learning about this is going to be a great school that we can learn about learning, and we can be learners of learners. And we're excited about some of the novelties that this is going to create. So I'm going to cover just a couple things, then I'm going to invite James Grandin, principal of Fremont, to come up and get into some of the specifics around some of these changes and how they're driving. The first things that I'm going to cover with you is going over the specific area of who that's impacting, because it is impacting a couple of surrounding schools as far as attendance boundaries. And we have had 4 parent meetings, 2 at each site, a week apart from each other, to share with the parents or the families that were being impacted, how they were being impacted, and the choices and options that they have. Obviously, we wanted them to be comfortable in going to Fremont, their new school, but they might consider their current school home, Truman and Fremont, and if they are current students there, we're going to allow them to grandfather and stay there through the end of that 5th grade year, no matter where they're at. So if a kindergartner can stay there through 5th grade now, a 5th grader could stay there next year and then go on to the appropriate middle school. At that point, though, if they do decide to choose the grandfathering option, they will be the grandfathering option. Parents will be responsible for the transportation at that point, and so that's the catch there, and they understood that, and we were able to share that information with that. So the boundaries might look a little hard to follow on this one. So this, I'll use the mouse to outline. This is the current Truman boundary, all that blue right there. This is the current Fremont, this is current Robertson, and Weller is in current purple. So the changes are actually highlighted in yellow here. So Fremont now will include this blue portion that I'm outlining in this area right here will become part of Fremont. This is Interstate 44, by the way, if that's what you're wondering what that is. And then this basically is Kearney Road right here, okay? And the new line for Fremont will go down this road right here, which is actually Fremont Road. Okay, National is about right here. That gives you some perspective on where this at. This purple corner over here is Weller, but there are no homes here, there are no students in residence here, but for sake, we are changing the boundaries of that just to make it a little bit easier on the maps. And so when this impacts those families, it obviously impacts our transportation as well. And so on this next slide gives you the new map for transportation eligibility, and there's a couple rules that we follow here. If they live within a certain distance, obviously they do not qualify for transportation, but if they live in a blue zone, if the student lives in a blue zone like this is Fremont right here, that means they are still 1.5 miles away from Fremont or within that walking distance, but because this is I-44, we don't want children running across I-44 to get to school, we are going to transport them, okay? And then if it's yellow, they're 1.5 miles farther out from the school, so they automatically qualify for transportation. So blue and yellow means they get transportation.
We have a quick question.
Yes.
Why the elongated, is that just historical because that's where the buildings were again, but instead of squared off for the difference, just because where the buildings exist?
And where the population exists around the school, kind of like children don't come in square packages, neither do communities and partner neighborhoods and so forth. And so that's basically why. Okay. Part of the reason why Fremont was specifically chosen is we had a nice land property there that we could expand the school. Robertson has been quite over capacity for a number of years, and Truman is pushing the boundaries as well. So this will get them within where they should be according to their current structure of being able to support students.
How many kids were impacted?
About 75 at each site, about 75 at Truman and about 75 at Robertson. Good question. Any questions on those maps?
I have a question, but I think you may answer it, so I'll just wait until
Okay.
you're finished.
All right. So that's going to be my portion, and at this time I'm going to invite James Grandin to come forward. Ms. Patterson, do you have a question?
Well, I feel like you should ask your question.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and ask it.
Feel free.
So has the letter gone out, or have parents returned a response yet as to whether they're going to stay in their schools?
We set a soft date, more or less, that they
Like
let
that.
us know by the end of February what their intentions were, knowing that we were going into spring break. And we also we had some good questions by specifically the Robertson parents who said, we'd kind of like to see what that structure is going to look like, but we can't take them to Fremont because it's under construction. So we created an evening where they had the opportunity to go to Sherwood Elementary, which is similar in that co-teaching model space that Mr. Grandin will talk about specifically, so they could see what they were going to be getting into to give them that feel of it. And that, I think that eased their heart a little bit, so.
So I think the reason for my question is, so what kind of response are we getting? If you can even give kind of a percent, what percent of those 75 students at each school?
A significant portion of them are going to be going to Fremont.
They're gonna move?
Yes.
Okay, that's,
Yep, I think they, when we went out to the parent meeting and showed what was coming to them, and Mr. Grandin is going to show you that, I think they were thrilled at the opportunity, and I think you'll be thrilled by what you see following me in just a moment.
Yeah, I'm thinking of going too.
Yeah, very good. I think there's a helicopter pad there too.
It's all coming together.
Very good, very good. Okay. All right, so at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Grandin to come forward. James has done just if you don't know James Grandin, take an opportunity to visit with him. Such an amazing principal, and he has done his homework and then some on the possibilities of this, and we have sat down together, not just he and I, but a team. This has been a very much a team approach. He's bringing his teachers on board, getting community involvement, going out and finding best practices, co-teaching models, and so forth, models of inquiry. It's fascinating, and we think that we're just going to create just a home run out of the Park School on this one. So ask Mr. Grandin to come forward.
Home run, I agree. That's exactly the goal. That's right. What I've done is I've summarized this into about eight slides to give you an idea of what the big picture on the vision for this new structure is. This is an overview. I know you've seen this structure in some blueprints and some different items that have been to the board before, but just to point out some of the highlights that are in there. In particular, the studio and flex spaces are something that we're really excited about. Those classrooms and the spaces that can engender powerful learning, the ability to be flexible and where and when the students are able to learn, to give the teachers the ability to meet them and their needs individually. Having the safety of this new structure. We've been reviewing lots of details about the security, the cameras, the high wind shelter that's available for the students at all times. We're very pleased with the architecture and with the pieces that have come together and the ability to learn both inside and outside this structure. There are multiple locations where we'll have the ability to have outdoor learning, and we feel like that's a powerful component for our students as well. New building. Flexible furniture and schedules. I can't say enough about the team that's been working with this through Ms. Embree and the business office. They have done an amazing job with their diligence in keeping us efficient with our costs and with our selection of furnitures, while still giving flexibility to the students and giving them the ability to be learners at their own comfort level. Students having the ability to choose when and where they work and with what teacher. That's embedded and integral into the design that we're building for this school. Furniture that's able to be moved and to be flexible, where we can have open spaces, we can have groups together, we can have individual spaces. One of the things our students are most particularly excited about are cave spaces. I don't know if that's something that term has come up before. We've done some virtual field trips to the construction site with the students, and every time we pass one of those cave spaces under construction, we get a lot of feedback from the students. I can't wait to get in here and do some reading in this space, to do some learning in this space. So it's really very engaging and very exciting. We're looking at a real student-centered community model. We're looking at wraparound services for the students, where we're going to be able to provide for the needs of the whole child in a much more substantive way. We're looking at some early childhood spaces available in the building, some connections with parents as teachers, and some things that will really allow the community to use our school. We're looking at some alternative scheduling for some of our staff so that we can have staff available, in particular our specialty staff, available in the evenings, so we can make some authentic curricular connections rather than having plug-in or add-on programs that have no connection to the meaning of the students. We think that we can have some really powerful things that are deliberately connected to art, music, and PE, and technology and library. We're looking at approaching our curriculum in a little different way. This is something where we're looking at conceptual-based learning. Lots of hands-on, lots of big ideas based on some strong research that we're bringing together so that we can have deeper connections and broader learning for the students. Something ultimately that's in context. That's one of the core principles that we've been building this structure about, that learning outside of context is trivia, and learning within context is true learning, something that will capture passion and will encourage students to continue their learning, which is the goal. We're looking at restructuring the way that we work our collaboration. In the past, just about every school that I've visited with, they have had their collaborative planning time at the expense of their specialty teachers. And I say that because I value that input. I value that mode for our students to be successful in. We have students that are highly musical. We have students that are highly creative and artistic. And we haven't had the opportunity to reach them to the degree that I believe that we can. And so part of our deliberate plan here is to move our collaboration time to a place where all teachers are available. So whether they're title or special education or specialty or classroom, they all can meet together to focus on the students and on their learning and building the curriculum that will be powerful for those students. We're looking at an extended year after a fashion. What we want to do is we want to balance with what's going on with the Explore program and offer to our students the same teachers, the same curriculum, the same building, the same engaging opportunities during that period of time. So it would give us, in essence, 21 more days in our school year. We still have the 172 that are the required, and that is our typical school year, so we would follow the same calendar in that respect. But we would open the school and give opportunity for our students to choose to return during that 21 days of the first session of Explore.
With the same teachers that they had during the year.
Correct.
Which means we're going to let the teachers know that in advance of making a choice to work there.
Excellent. That's
for that to
a
be a
very
surprise.
powerful, now, that's not going to be a surprise. No, we've been very, very deliberate and direct with our teachers, giving them the opportunity to, in advance, have that commitment level that we're all going to stay during this time, and we're going to serve our kids.
And be paid something, I'm sure.
Of course.
Just looking out for them. I'm ready now.
Thank you. And of course, as most of the district is looking, we're looking at technology as an accelerant. We're looking at the ability of this method, and even more so with our younger students, to give them access to the world, to give them access to opportunities to collaborate and to communicate with each other, to critical think, and to truly be creative in new ways. And we're already seeing that as most of our Springfield schools with the Ignite program.
James, can I stop you? Just
Sure.
a question? So I want to go back to just kind of follow up on Jill's question a little bit. So this is going to look very different for,
Okay?
say, a veteran teacher that, that's been around a while. Help me to understand the process that you went through, because I can see some teachers in other buildings say, I want to do this. I want to be part of this. And some that might say, I'm not ready for this yet. So kind of process did you go through to help those teachers decide, I'm staying with this is where I want to be, or maybe I shouldn't be here?
Well, and that's
And
exactly
I don't mean
right.
being in
this
teaching,
isn't-
but
yeah, this is
just
going to be very
being in
innovative.
the school, because the success of this will be those that are ready to plow into this and do things a new way.
I agree completely. That's exactly right. This is not, as you say, this isn't going to be a traditional school in any respect, really. And it isn't going to be a good fit for every teacher. So we've been very candid. We started this process almost a year ago, talking with the current Fremont staff about what are the options and where do we go from here, and who's a good fit for this, and how do we prepare for this. And so we've been doing development for quite a while now to prepare and to look at this. As Dr. Anderson mentioned, we've done a lot of collaborating with colleagues. In fact, we had 3 schools we visited this morning, or this afternoon today, to share some of those practices and to talk about it. And as we've shared each of these pieces that we're bringing together, what I continue to see is there are a lot of educators that would love to be a part of this, that it excites them, and they see the passion of learning in themselves as well as in the students that can come from it.
So will have the same staff that you had, or are you going to have some changes?
There will be some changes. There are some staff that are moving to other sites that might be a little more traditional. I don't know, with Ignite going on, I'm not sure there's going to be a whole lot of traditional left anymore. Yeah, but we're certainly going to be an outlier, I think, to some degree, and that's deliberate. So we do want it to be a good fit, and we do want it to be philosophically a fit. That to us is one of the most important pieces.
I have one more question.
Sure.
So I'm thinking about this extra 21 days, is that?
Correct.
Okay. Is it like an expectation that all the students would do that, or is it still a choice? And then I'm trying to think about what about the people who didn't choose that, because then they're not going to be in the same place.
That's correct. Right now we have a minimum number of days that are considered by the state a full year, 172. And that varies a little bit by district. And so it isn't a requirement that they attend those extra 21 is the number this year. It isn't a requirement for graduation or progression for them to attend those 21 days. But what we have found in our discussions with our community, that they want that time. They don't look at that as burdensome. They look at that as delightful and exciting.
But despite the delightfulness, it's still a choice, right?
It is absolutely a choice. That's correct.
I think it's delightful too. I just wondered. Thank you.
Similar to current summer school or intercessions at Robertson and the way that it's built out. Still, Explore. Similar, still a choice, because we wanted to give options, but we think the product is going to sell itself in high
And that's,
participation
yeah,
rates.
if you really summarized what's the vision in a sentence, it's we want to build a school where students are beating the doors down to get in.
But it occurs to me one difference, as I heard you, is that like whereas my kids are signing up to something different for their period of summer school this summer, in this instance, you would be continuing on something that was already happening, so it'll be a little bit
It'll
different.
be different all year long. Yeah,
That's what we are, I'm with you. Okay.
that's right. And finally, this piece, that co-teaching model, what we're looking at is more than simply two teachers in a room. We're looking at that bleeding into all areas of the school. And we've already seen some examples of this at the current Fremont and the old house in the old Sherwood building, where we've had title teachers co-teaching. We've had special education teachers co-teaching. We've had specialty teachers and classroom teachers co-teaching. And that's been a really powerful thing to see, and the students have benefited greatly. And that's exactly the vision for where we want to go with this, that we have a pattern of time where the students have access to lots of individuals who might meet their learning needs. So if I had to summarize all that, this is the 8th slide. So there's the summary of the 7 slides. If you put them all together, that's really what we're about. We're taking away the walls of the school. We're taking away the walls of the curriculum. We're taking away the walls of planning around the teachers. We're giving people freedom to do some really powerful things. And we're going to have a lot of fun. What questions can I answer for you?
So I have another question.
Sure.
So you briefly mentioned your outside learning areas, because that's brilliant, of course. Is there anything you can tell us about what that will look like, or is that still just a concept?
No, there are several places that I'd have to go back to the plans, but let me point out a few. In fact, I took a picture this morning. We keep a blog, actually, of the construction process if you wanted to look at newfremont.blogspot.com. It's really there. Okay. Let me point out on this particular slide. I'll use Dr. Anderson's trick of using the mouse as a pointer. Outdoor learning spaces is here. What it's highlighting here is a particular place that's deliberately an outdoor space. There are 2 of the cave spaces that are a part of this outdoor learning space. It's an outdoor patio. There are also some windows and some interaction here. But this is going to be, to me, this is a learning stair. Now, a learning stair is a little different than a regular stairway. It's twice the size, basically. And so they're large steps where you can have students sit and share and present and work together. We're going to have a similar structure. It's a little easier to see right here, where you have, here's what a standard staircase would look like in that place, and these are the learning stairs in that area right there. We've also got, this is an entire porch area that's partially covered. This area right here is actually covered, so we can have a flow in and out. This is our major maker space right here. So there's going to be a lot of creative in and out things going all through this area. I believe the architects refer to that as the knuckle of the design.
Thank you.
So have the faculty, have the teachers who are going to go in there spent some time at Sherwood, talk to them about what they've learned, which I assume is
Oh, yes.
a lot.
great deal.
That will help inform what you're doing here.
Absolutely, yes.
And then they can share back with the Sherwood teachers after you get started there.
We have visited quite a few schools, both in and outside the district, to look at these models, and we're seeing that co-teaching in particular, or collaborative team teaching, some of the research would refer to it as, is a very powerful and effective avenue that is sweeping our district.
Got a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
James. You referenced wraparound services. Can you tell us a little bit more about the community partners that are going to be part of this?
Certainly. Part of that, of course, is still in development, because this is something that's a little different. It's a little new.
Yeah.
One of the things we're already working with our federal programs, with the early childhood departments, and with some of our existing community partners. The SPARK program is who Fremont has been connected with in the past, and looking at what kind of services can we provide that might be outside the norm. But we're also intending very deliberately that those specialist connections, as represented in the graph on the upper left, that those will be something that will also expand and grow as we begin. For example, if I were an art teacher, I would probably already have some connection with the Arts Council, or with the Springfield Art Museum, or with some of the other arts organizations that are in town. Well, the natural place for that to fit would be the time when I'm there for for extracurriculars. And so we're going to have a much more authentic, I think, connection as the real curriculum and the community connections find each other there.
And how does the wraparound services compare the menu or the goal, the object? How does that compare with, say, Robertson?
Good. That's an excellent question. We have been working with them, and in fact, we're really anticipating a synergy. The communities are very proximate to each other. We're really expecting that we can have services that would work between the two schools and with the two schools, given their proximity and given the size of this new facility and the relative lack of size at Robertson. I would love to see services that we can provide to both communities in the new building.
And going on another track, how many student teachers do you have this year?
I don't believe we've had any this year.
How many do you think you're going to get next year?
I anticipate we will have some interest
Yeah, I would
from
think
our
so.
local educational institutions.
I would think so. I think we've got a new lab school in town.
It's exciting.
That's it.
Anything, any other questions? Comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great work.
We will keep you posted as any other changes come along, and thanks for your time this evening. Appreciate it.
I will mention that I had an opportunity to go to Fremont, Old Sherwood, a few weeks ago, and James' office looks like a architectural firm with all the blueprints everywhere in his office and all the detailed, the details that they're looking at in terms of the furniture and the colors and how the students are going to sit. And one thing that I know for sure from talking to some of the students at Fremont is if you ask them what they want to help them learn, they will tell you. I mean, exactly, they'll tell you what kind of seat they want to sit on, what kind of table they want to sit on. And I think it's neat that we're asking students that question. What do you need to help you learn? Because I'm not sure we've always done that. So and the kids are very bright, very bright. They'll ask anything. So it'll be fun to see them in their new school next year. And I ask if it's been problematic for them to be bused to a new school for the year, and no one seemed to have a problem with it. The kids all thought it was kind of fun. So anyway, great things ahead for Fremont. Excited for that.
So we'll note that you'll have the chance to approve some of those things in the upcoming month. You'll see the blurb in this 7.02 that furniture, fixtures, and equipment will be coming forward in April. Some of it may be at the study session because we're in the purchasing process right now, and some at the regular meeting, but bids are out and process is moving forward. So you'll get to see some of that coming your way soon.
Good. Okay. Anything else on 7? Okay, we'll move on to board policy, adoptions revision. Just kind of as a quick reminder, these items were brought to us for our first read at our March 1st study session. And board members have had the opportunity to ask questions or collect additional information from the administration over the last 2 weeks. And that will allow us to move forward this evening. If you have any questions or anything you want to comment on in terms of the revision of these policies, we have done a lot of work last year to bring our policies up to date. And I'm especially proud of our revision of our Board of Education unexpired term fulfillment vacancies because it gives us some more specific guidance on what to do in the event of a board member has an unexpected resignation, or we have an unexpected resignation. So we all kind of lived through that this last year, and
Some of us
and
more than others.
like I said at that time, whenever you have to live a policy, you really understand how you need to clean it up. So I think we've got that one fixed up, good to go, and hopefully we don't have to use it again, but just in case. So at this time, are there any questions or comments about any of the policy adoption or revisions before us this evening? Hearing none, do we have a motion on the floor to approve that we adopt all policies, adoptions, and revisions as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Tim Rosenberry, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Annie Bush. So at this time, please vote. Thank you. Move on to new business. We have no new business at this time, so we'll move on to our unfinished business. 10.01 curriculum adoption. Again, as you may recall, or hopefully you recall, we had a nice presentation at our study session regarding curriculum resources. And that would be for our K-5 social studies, 612 family and consumer sciences, 612 technical education, and our project Lead the Way. At this time, when we've had 2 weeks to ask questions or get specific information if we needed it. If we have questions or comments tonight, now's the time.
I'd like to just mention that I had some questions and that I got answered by administration. My questions were that the motion of the recommended action said something about recommended instructional materials as presented for the estimated cost of about $1.8 million in total, and about $90,000 in annual recurring expenses. I just did some quick mental math of the numbers that are included in the detail on board docs. They don't add up to $1.8 million. And I thought, okay, now what's going on? But as I understand it, the total estimate for everything that's going to be purchased is going to be $1.8 million, and this is just the first round of purchases. And then the second question I had was, is that $1.8 million or slightly under that, and the $90,000, is that within the budget that's been set? And the answer was yes. So I just wanted to pass that information on.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so at this time, this is recommended action. Do I have a motion that the board approves the request for recommended instructional resource materials as presented? Thank you. Jill Patterson. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second and a third. No, second, Jean Twitty. And please vote at this time. Thank you. Voting is complete. Moving on to 10.02 Budget Development 2016-17. On goes our work. Ms. Embree?
Hold up, and we will talk about debt service.
Chance.
There we go.
Okay. So, this marks our second journey on the budget development process. This is a repeat slide reminding you of the various funds from which we operate. I've added this screenshot of our general budget summary that you receive each month as part of the treasurer's reports, just to show you a different view of the various funds that we segregate out the expenditures and revenue into. And so this is showing you that we are looking at debt service this evening, and that's that column right there, if you ever go back to the general budget summary. And I have a highlight here to point out to you that if you look at the general budget summary in the current year, it includes a refunding issue that is paying down other debt. So it basically replicates expenditures in the current year, and I'll talk more about that as we journey forward with regard to opportunities for refinancing. So this is our budget development timeline, and this evening again is debt service, and on April 5th at that meeting we will talk about bond. So there is overlap obviously between debt service and bond because of the nature of of the purpose of the funds, but we will focus this evening's discussion on debt service. This shows the slice of the pie if you look at a typical year with regard to the debt service portion. So it's about 6.5% of our overall operations, and that includes all of our funds. And I've provided a note that according to Missouri Statute 165.011, there is a specific requirement that debt service money be maintained in a separate bank account. That's not the case for other funds. You can commingle those. Oftentimes, though, we segregate those out just for ease in reconciling the bank accounts and in tracking them. This evening, our discussion objectives include the standard fund balance, revenue and expenditures. We'll talk about the debt schedules as they're currently presented, and then we'll take a look at some of the comparisons of other districts, regional and statewide, with regard to assessed valuation and levy. So the debt service account, as is typical, the balance rolls forward. So whatever the balance was at June 30 becomes the balance July 1, and those funds are available for expenditures. We also have the opportunity for capital projects funds transfers to go into the debt service account. And then there are certain revenue types that would be direct receipted into the debt service account, and also as impacted by our levy distribution. So for instance, we know that current tax or delinquent tax, the levy impacts which fund that revenue goes into, and that's why we have a debt service levy. So that drives the bulk of our receipts into the debt service fund. This shows you revenue and expenditures, and we'll take a look first at revenue, but the resources that are basically accumulated for the repayment of long-term debt. And so that's to retire any of those bonds that are issued for the purpose of constructing or acquiring land or buildings. And if you take a look at the revenue budget, you see that the majority of that revenue is in local resources. In the current year, we have 93.33%. With a small slice of county at 1.83%, and then we do have federal revenue, and that is relative to subsidy interest that we're receiving from the federal government through what was the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act when the economy took a downturn a few years ago. And I have a slide also that speaks to that. We have 5 different series from which we submit a reimbursement of interest, and those are all from the 2010 year, and that's series A, B, C, D, and E. And there are different types of federal subsidies, and those were structured to provide for revenue for that. This shows the debt service expenditures, and I'm showing it both ways. One is including the refunding bond issue that I mentioned, and the other is showing a typical year. So the one on the right shows, you can see we've got a significant chunk of principal paid off in the current year. That included that $88 million in principal. This version shows you what a typical year looks like, where we are paying 34% in principal and 65.78% in interest. And if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to ask those. This is not intended for you to be able to read. It's just a reminder that each year, you're glad to hear that, as part of our budget presentation, and we did this at the June 30 board meeting for approving the current year budget, we provide you with the schedule, the amortization schedule of principal and interest payments for each of the series, and that is detailed out. And the interest rates for each of our issues ranges between 1.5% and 5.66%. I'd also like to mention that when we have done refinancings, the recent refinancing, our goal is always to shorten the amount of interest paid overall. We don't do that to extend the life of the loan as a typical practice. These 2 documents show you the schedule, so I'll zoom in on this one. This is the summary schedule by series, so you can see these are the current series that are outstanding. And current for FY17, we will show a principal total of $242,010,000, and the interest anticipated to be paid over the life of the loans would be $106,467,522. The next snapshot shows you the principal and interest payments that will occur each year. So each fiscal year, we will provide a budget for principal and interest, and then also fees. We typically budget around $10,000 for fees. In the current year so far, we've spent just over close to $8,000 in fees. So I can say with confidence to you right now that the debt service budget that we present to you in June for approval will be very close to the numbers that you're seeing here. We will be budgeting a principal allocation of $11,410,000 and an interest allocation of $10,558,917, and then the fees of $10,000. This shows a comparison of our statewide peer districts, and we are taking a closer look at assessed valuation and debt on a per pupil basis, as well as the levy. So if we zoom in and look at this first viewpoint, the statewide peers selected are similar to those which we have selected previously for other comparative data. And you can see that Springfield Public Schools shows a debt per pupil of $9,649, and that's when not including any type of refunding spike that might occur in a fiscal year. Yes?
So I always worry about asking a question because I'm not sure I understand this well enough, but I'm going to try it.
It's okay.
Why does that debt per pupil number vary so widely throughout the state?
And it basically, from the pure vantage point of a larger district, you would expect that the debt load would be less per pupil, okay? But the other districts, it just certainly depends on what type of needs have been presented in that school system. And not only that, needs are often driven by what type of revenue opportunity can support them. So there may be districts that have significant needs that haven't been addressed in the form of borrowing money and producing a debt per pupil as compared to the others. So there are a variety of circumstances.
Some of the factors include, just your tradition of being able to pass bond issues, as well as your growth factor.
That is what I
Right.
thought,
So
but
those
I
are-
wanted to know why it varied so widely.
It varies widely, and it's especially in big districts, it varies a lot. Small districts, it probably varies even more, right? Because you'll get next to nothing debt per child to lots of debt per child in a small system just because of the load on each kid. So.
I just didn't want to decide for myself what the issues were. Thank you.
That was a
So you see
very
us
good
kinda in the
question.
middle, so, as compared to this large group.
I didn't hear the first thing you said.
Kind of in the middle is what, if you look, we have a few above and a few below as we
Yeah.
look at these peers.
The districts are listed in order of assessed valuation per pupil, that far right column. So you can see that we enjoy a large assessed valuation per pupil. So that's a good thing for us. We do have commercial in our community that helps support our needs in the system. Are there any other questions about this slide? Okay. This shows that same group of districts, and now it is sorted by total levy, again, the far right column. I can't get to that. So you can see that total levy, Springfield Public Schools has 4.0719. The highest district listed is at 6.5167. Again, a variety of factors contribute to this, and districts dependent on their local revenue that they received back in the 2005 school year, that has impacted the state revenue moving forward on the foundation formula that we operate under at this time. So, but I'd like to highlight for you that with regard to the debt levy, you can see that we are at 0.5. This information is as of FY 14-15. So keep in mind that we did make a slight change in the current year. This was the only information we had available to us for the other districts, so we had to go back to the prior year. So we were at that time at 0.51 for a debt service levy, and you can see that the largest one indicated is 1.29 at North Kansas City, Independence 127. So again, this represents statewide peers and provides you with some context with regard to a variety of scenarios. Yes, sir.
So 2 districts have a capital levy.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
We do have opportunity to set a capital levy that would work much like any other levy when it comes to applying that to the local tax. revenue source.
What does that do? Just goes right into the capital?
It goes right into the capital account. And you may recall that we are depositing M&M money into the capital account because there are certain revenue types that you have the flexibility to deposit into any fund you desire, M&M being one of those. So that is how we have placed funds in capital. The other option for capital was through a transfer from the operating. And then this is yet that third option that we can place a levy directly there.
Is there a different voting requirement for a capital debt service versus bond? A
There-
percentage vote to pass it?
Not for the actual levy. When we provide you with the levy in August for approval, after we've posted our tax rate hearing, we've received the second set of data from the assessor's office. It's just a matter of how we distribute the levy at that time. I will tell you that there was an old formula that affected the state revenue if you placed levy in the capital projects fund, but that's no longer the case. So we could have that as a discussion option to actually direct receipt into the capital projects fund if we desired.
So would you
You would
do
be taking it
a
out of that
levy
unless you-
specifically for a capital levy? You could take that to the vote?
It's part of simply how we distribute our
distribute it?
current levy.
Okay.
So we could reduce our current operating levy where currently and you can also see, I'd like to actually, while we're talking about this, note that a number of districts no longer place a levy in the special revenue fund or the teachers fund. And that's because we have a responsibility to meet minimum salary requirements in other ways. So this was an old school methodology where it used to be that certain revenues got distributed to general and certain to teachers. We have the option now that we could not set a levy in the teacher fund if we desired and simply add to that fund based on the transfer mechanism that we currently do anyway. So right now we're kind of on the fence in how we approach the teacher fund. We have some revenue going directly into it, but it's not enough to cover the total expenditures that we need for the year. So that's why you see those transfers each month that we approve as part of the general budget summary.
I think going back to
Lots of
Jerry's
different ways to
question,
do it.
could you go for just a capital tax levy?
To increase our levy overall, certainly, that could be an option. Mhm.
But you can,
Different percentage vote than a bond issue? That
Oh,
was
I
my
see,
question.
I see.
Is that a different vote for a capital levy?
It's just an
It's,
versus
operating
a
it's,
bond?
yeah,
It's
it's,
an operating levy?
it's the same.
Okay,
and-
so
It's just an
51%.
It's just what we
50
call
plus
it when we
1.
put it
50 plus
in.
one
Right.
vote, okay,
Okay.
that was what I was
Okay.
wondering.
I'm glad that
But you
clarification
can't
occurred.
enter into debt. You can do lease purchase out of that fund, but you cannot.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, so it's, you can go get it, you can get it at 50 plus 1%, but it's not debt service money. Right.
Great questions. Yeah. Any other clarification? Okay. All right, so again, we have options is the message I would leave with you. And our scenarios are quite varied dependent on the individual district circumstances. Uh-huh.
Is it better to have multiple columns there and have levies in different ones, or is it better to have it somewhat general versus debt? And does that give you more flexibility? Does it make any difference? We have a special, the teachers fund thing. Is it more advantageous to just roll it into a general? Does that give you more flexibility to do things or not?
I'll tell you from a transaction perspective, the only change that would be, that would result in less work would be to not have a teacher fund levy, because we just have to do additional transactions and tracking, okay? When it comes to the capital levy, if the board desired to have a specific designated amount each year, that can certainly happen. We have that ability to transfer up to, it's close to $10.5 million a year out of operating as a capital fund transfer. So it's really a matter of how you choose to operate. They've provided options.
A lot of it's based on district tradition of where they've placed those levies and the way the formulas used to work and how they don't, so.
Big on flexibility,
You-
that's why.
It
It's
sounds
not-
like there are Ford families and there are
There,
Chevy.
you kind
That's
of got
great,
that,
yeah.
there you go, 'cause it really doesn't
And then,
provide
like,
much
some
advantage.
family for
Yeah,
a
either way.
business that doesn't operate anymore, 'cause
Yeah.
they're doing it based on something that doesn't exist anymore, just because they always have.
Right, legacy.
Yeah, because that's where we
Not a
always
good reason
placed
to
it.
do anything.
But it doesn't necessarily provide any additional benefit to doing it
Yeah,
every
she's
way.
saying there's more than one way around the barn. That's
Right.
essentially.
You got it.
There are
Although
options.
The other reason
Teacher
that
part
people,
is still confusing, like, should we not be doing it that way?
Well, it's totally optional. As you can see, it's about 50-50 of these select districts.
But I thought you said it was old school and.
It is, and it was because how we used to assess, were we making an appropriate allocation for teacher salary and benefits? And that no longer applies, because we already are transferring, we are projected in the current year to transfer just over $6 million because we come up short based on the expenditure load. And we can move the levy around, that would be one option, but at the end of the day, we transfer to set it to zero at June 30.
so if you put all
again-
the teacher fund into the general fund, you're just gonna transfer more money into the teacher fund to pay the teacher balance.
Right.
At the end of the year or monthly. So it really is just it's a transfer mechanism. So placement doesn't matter. Jerry, to your point, the one other thing that you mentioned on capital fund, another reason that you may place something in the capital fund is if you were at your bonding capacity and you ran a special
Yes.
issue around lease purchasing, saying we're gonna run a 10-cent capital and all that's gonna go to lease purchasing because we're against our bonding capacity. That'd be another place when someone might strategically go that route. And that might, I'm not sure if those two districts that have one there, if that applies to them or not, but there are some that I know that it would.
Since you brought it up, I was gonna save it for next meeting, since we're talking about bonds, but what is our bonding capacity?
And I will have that. I don't
for
have it right
next-
here in front of me, but yeah.
Oh, tonight?
It's
Oh,
it's for
next
next,
meeting.
it's,
Okay.
it's
I
a
didn't wanna get
teaser.
ahead, but you brought it up.
It's a teaser.
That's in the next chapter, my
Yes.
friend.
Show
I
up
didn't
April
mean
5.
to read ahead, I just.
You're always doing that.
Okay, I'll move forward and feel free to take me back if we need to go back. This shows our regional peers, and so here you can see, when we look at assessed valuation and debt, again, we're seeing our AV per pupil staying the same. Our debt per pupil, $9,649, and we are, again, middle of the pack, but we would expect to see some of these smaller school systems have a higher debt per pupil load. Move on to the levy. Taking a look at our regional peers on levy, we are at 4.0719, and that again is as of 2014-15 adjusted levy for each district. And in this situation, we see that only one school district has a capital levy, Branson, with 20 cents. And a number of these districts have opted to no longer place a levy in the teacher.
Bless you.
Excuse me. One of the things to note while we're, kind of middle of the road, total debt service levy as compared to peers is low, right?
Very,
The
very
peers
low.
in the region
Mhm.
is low. And that would, why we're next to last and probably, as compared to on the last slide, revenue per child or debt, they've accumulated more, they're paying more because they have a higher debt service levy. And we also know that there are some high growth districts around us that have had to go out there and do those things. So it gives you a statewide comparison and a regional comparison of the pictures that exist around us. So.
All right. So this is just a reminder of that tax rate hearing notice that we post, and also to highlight for you that we are required to set the budget by June 30, but until we receive the final assessed valuation that affects a large portion of our revenue for the debt service account, we don't know what our numbers will be. So currently, we do have our December assessed valuation data, and we'll receive the final in August of 2016, just in time to provide for you at the August board meeting the levy recommendation for the upcoming year. Again, I've noted the subsidy payments that are anticipated, and that's that federal revenue that's offsetting some of our interest payments that we have established from the 2010 series of those five issues. This, Jerry, is where we distribute it out, right there in the center here. So if we decided to handle this in a different way, that would be the point at which we would post it in that manner, and then we would also complete our state auditor tax forms to align with that. Okay, that's actually the end of this. Are there any questions about debt?
Yeah.
It was pretty fun, wasn't it?
It was fun, Carol.
Work with me.
We
Okay.
did our best, but we're
You-
done now.
Actually, I appreciate the engagement and the questions. So here's the teaser, Jerry. Look at that, bonding
Gotcha.
capacity. So at the April 5 meeting, we will talk about the 2013 bond funds, our Standard & Poor bond rating, bonding capacity, revenue calculation, and levy requirements of bond issues. So if, that's going to be exciting. So if you have anything in particular, a burning question in your mind, if you could send that my way or call me with it. If there's something you want to make sure that I cover during that presentation, I'd be happy to accommodate your request. So,
Think remedial.
uh,
No, Rayon.
all right.
Remedial. Thank you. Anything else? Anyone? Okay. We'll move on to public comments to address non-agenda items. At this time, the Board of Education welcomes comments on topics not related to the printed agenda. And I do believe we have one speaker this evening. Is that? So just as a reminder, comments are limited to 3 minutes for each speaker and will be timed by the board secretary, and you'll note there'll be a timer on the screens to help you stay on track with your time. It is inappropriate to address the board about individual students or individual staff members by name in an open meeting. If you have concerns about individuals, these concerns should be addressed to the appropriate administrative supervisors either at the school or in the district office. So this time we welcome Bob Monday to the platform. Or the podium.
The A team couldn't make it tonight, Alan and Aaron, so the B team is here. I'll make this fairly short. A few years back, I was speaking at Missouri State University. Dee Wamper was there. Miss Nadine Strawson of the ACLU was there, and she was promoting the homosexual agenda along with the NAMBLE organization, which was promoting the ideals of sex with 8 to 12-year-old children. That's where our country is moving. Looks like, in a large way, the secular humanism, the situational ethics that is being brought through the public schools and on into the college campuses, taking the Christ of Christmas songs out of both sang and being played. This is incomprehensible. And the buckle on the Bible belt that's happening here in Springfield, Missouri. It's very disappointing to me and to a lot of other parents and grandparents out there. Miss Nadine Strawson said that we had not only a right but an obligation if we had documented quotes by great Americans that were renowned. You, doctor, I'm asking you to stand up and speak up. Our history, our heritage, our legacy is built that we were founded as a Christian nation. And to back down because of the ACLU, Ms. Strawson told me personally in front of 3,800 students, we not only had a right but an obligation if we had documented quotes like James Madison, "Cursed be all that learning that's contrary to the cross of Christ." On and on, 5,000 quotes about our founding fathers and where they stood. You're sitting in the heart and the soul of America. If there is an almighty God, and I'm quite sure there is, you are responsible for what's going on, not only in Springfield, Missouri, but the heartbeat and the soul of America, the buckle on the Bible belt, Springfield, Missouri, USA. I'm not going to have time for this quote from Thomas Jefferson, but I'm going to ask you to soul search as we move into a time where they're gonna make it illegal for me to pray with homeless veterans like they're doing in Canada right now if I don't have a psychiatry degree. Is that what you want in America? Is that what you want for your children and your grandchildren? I would hope and I'd pray not. Go see Risen. Go see War Room. We have a great school system. We can improve it by getting back to the basics of one nation under God. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Move on to 12.01, Cabinet Report.
Yeah, just have some updates from cabinet members. Start with Parker, HR.
Yeah, absolutely. So several fun things going on. First, on a strategic level, let me just, Ms. Embree gave you a teaser for the April 5th meeting. I'll give you one as well. We'll have an update on Strategic Focus Area 2, which is the people and human capital strategy of the district. So I'll bring to you our work up to this point in identifying the strategies and the measures of that focus area, which is a lot of great work as a result of input from a lot of different stakeholders. And we're actually getting some additional input tomorrow from our senior leadership team on that focus area. So that's looking forward to April 5th. Also, continuing our conversation on policy JECA. So this is the adjustment to the policy that the board has approved to allow qualified staff members to bring their children into the district if they are not a resident of Springfield. The communication on that is going out this week along with the administrative practice and the forms for staff to be able to do that. So we hope to implement that, or we will implement that in time to impact our recruitment initiative for next school year. So that's also very exciting. And then lastly, just a general staffing update. Teacher hiring continues, and we have several administrative positions. So you may have heard we're working on several principal openings at the secondary level, one principal opening at the elementary level. Those processes are moving forward. We've had great applicant pools and interest in those roles. And then also, you may have heard the Chief Human Resources Officer position is also open, working to fill that as well and moving forward in that process. Although I know I'm very difficult to replace. We are working.
You didn't clear that comment.
I'll do the best I can to try to find someone to fill behind me.
Appreciate Parker's work on all of this. Some great work by the HR team. He will be incredibly hard to replace and sorely missed, as you all know. And we'll celebrate his time here before he leaves, but we will also look for someone to carry up the torch and make great progress with the work he started. So thank you, Parker. Annie?
Yeah, a quick question. Percentage-wise, how big a turnover are you seeing for faculty as opposed to other years?
So I don't have a percentage in front of me. We fill on average about 200 teaching vacancies a year, which would represent just a little over 10%. Most of that turnover happens early career, as we would expect it to, and I'm not seeing any indication that trend would be out of line with what we expect to see next year. Of course, we've seen that earlier than in prior years because of the early separation notice incentive that we implemented, but I don't see any indication that it's going to be greater than trend. Yeah.
Thank you.
I've updated a number of district initiatives that are happening. One is, as you recall, Explore kicked off on February 8th with registration. We have over 7,000 students who have enrolled at this point, with 1,300 of those being online e-learners. So we're very excited about that. That number continues to grow in our system. I think the one piece of that I'm really excited about is that 3,000 of them have enrolled kind of double dipped. They're in June and July. So we've never done July before, and we have 3,000 students who have said, this is a great opportunity for their families and for their learning. So I want to thank our Explore team. We have a number of departments and people coming together, transportation, food service, curriculum, just everybody working to pull this off and make it an excellent opportunity for our students. So I'm thankful for them. I also want to let you know that members of our executive leadership team are working with our analytics department right now, and we are looking at the projected enrollment for next year. So we are scrubbing that data, trying to figure out as we move kids up in the system, trying to project what would kindergarten look like, because that's kind of the unknown. And then we use that number to help us do accurate staffing for each of the buildings. We've done some initial looking around that, but we are also waiting for the impact of JCEA with that and how that might affect it. So we'll continue to monitor it and we'll keep you posted. Also want to let you know the district assessment committee met in February. They took, their goal is to really look at a more balanced assessment calendar for our students and really truly defining what should be a building level or classroom level assessment tool and what should be monitored and reported at the district level. So they took great feedback there, and from that feedback they've really created a feedback tour that will include superintendent's forum with teachers, it will include principal groups, it will include the full committee again, and we anticipate the recommendation to you later this spring. So wanted to let you know that work is still moving forward. Wanted to give you an update on the Khajiit hotspots. As you recall, we put 500 of those into the system, and by the end of this week, we will have all 500 deployed in all 18 Ignite schools. So our elementary schools will have a number of them, middle schools, and our high schools. So that's just kind of a pattern we're seeing. I think the trending is we see a need for internet access. We don't see as many students participating and grabbing those at this moment, but we'll continue to market it, we'll continue to get it into the system, and we'll continue to report out on their usage. The other one I wanted to recognize is our innovation team through our Imagine grants. We have infused almost $25,000 in the system at this point for research and development. That's what I call it, because it is truly research and development on what best practices that can make it relevant, engaging, and personal for our students. So we are seeing Imagine grants hit the not only land in classrooms, but furniture is being purchased, or experiences are happening for kids that might not have happened. So I want to thank that team for what they're doing. I also want to thank all the teachers who have applied for those Imagine grants, because they are putting a lot of effort into them. And if you are a Twitter person, I'd encourage you to hit the hashtag Imagine grants and scroll through and look at the pictures and look at the videos, because they are creative and powerful, and I love how they have the student voice in those. Lastly, I just want to recognize Mrs. Wolfram. She was recently elected as the National CASE President-elect, and CASE is the Council for Special Education Professionals, Administrators. So we recognize her not just at the state level, but now she'll be, Springfield will have a voice at the national table for that group, and we appreciate her stepping up and congratulate her on that recognition. So.
Dr. Dawson, Ms. Embree.
I would like to share that our very first building assessment started today, and Hillcrest High School was that first one out the gate. This week we'll also have Jarrett Middle School and Bingham Elementary. Then the journey will continue all the way through April 7th, and they will conduct between 4 to 6 building assessments per day, and they have 3 different teams that are going through that process. So we are well underway on the facility master planning process. The information with regard to our community engagement opportunities will be forthcoming very soon, so watch for that as well. We're all about teasers this evening, aren't we? That's the theme. I want you to know that we have let the bid for the nutrition services contracted service agreement, and that was let last week, and actually tomorrow will be a walkthrough opportunity for any vendors who are interested in participating. The proposals are due April 8th, and we will go through the evaluation and interviews as needed, and then provide the recommendation to you in time for the May 3rd board meeting, and then seek approval at the May 17th board meeting. So that is coming up. I also want to thank James Grandin and Jay Anderson and Ben Hackenworth and the operations team for the work that we have done together on Fremont FF&E and working through that, and also the design graphics. It's been a pleasure to work with that team, and I think it's been a worthwhile experience for many people as well. We're changing a little bit in terms of how we navigate who's responsible for what in some of those areas, and so that's why I've engaged more closely in this process. You did note, I believe Dr. Jungman, you shared already, that was on my list to comment, that we did partially post some of the contracts that we have ready, and we'll continue to bring others forward under the regular contracts and agreements section. So at the end of the run, the total should be approaching the 1.8 million. Our capital planning communication has been provided to leaders throughout the system. Scott Wendt and his team have made that happen, and he's working through additional communications with some of our companies, so I'd like to thank them for their work on that. And I'd like to thank the finance team for their work continuing on developing the budget for the 2016-17 school year. So those budget meetings continue to happen while we're providing you with insight into the process behind that. It will all culminate when we reach the end of May and prepare for that first June recommendation for all budget in total. So that's the update for me. Thanks.
Final things, we're just returned from spring break, obviously, and home stretch is here. And we have a lot of important things coming up. As one of those, always a part of this time of year, is we will have state assessment. And we're excited about kids' opportunity to show what they've learned this year, and classrooms to celebrate the great things going on. So we've got several weeks left, a lot left to do, but we have reached the home stretch. It has flown by. Other things to celebrate. We do have a couple of teams that have qualified for the Final Four and will continue their journey towards, hopefully, state titles this week. So Kickapoo girls and boys both will be in Columbia representing SPS. Glendale had a great run and was knocked out in the quarterfinals also. So it's been a fun year in a number of different sporting activities. Those are the ones that remain, and then spring sports are underway and activities are underway. So if you're looking for something to do on an evening, there is plenty of opportunities. You know that. So. Those are the big cabinet reports and information items. Moving straight to legislative, if you don't mind, I'll hit a couple big things. Like we talked about, House budget has passed out of the House at this point. Approximately $70 million in the formula. We still have a couple concerns with the revenue streams of a couple of those items. It's better than it was. But we're still working hard on the Senate side to clean up some revenue streams, see if we can end up with a little higher number before we're done. That represents just a little over 2% on the formula. If that gives you a big picture, it's a $3.2 billion formula. So that $70 million is really important for us as we move forward. It will not move the state adequacy target forward, unfortunately, because the formula costs more next year because of threshold shifts and because of preschool going on and a couple other things. We know there's a need for at least $61 million just to hold water. $61 million, we will still perform better because our threshold free and reduced shifts will benefit us, so we will grow some weighted average daily attendance through that process. But every dollar in there will directly affect our bottom line as we move forward the budgeting process this year. Sandy?
I know Senator Wasson is concerned about how that formula grows.
Yeah, that Senate bill is 586, I do believe, and then House Bill 1943 are two bills that we're monitoring closely. And I talked to Senator Wasson yesterday, and we talk routinely about his bill. Personally very supportive of his bill because it, I think, protects the formula long term, which is a good thing for us. It does pull down the cost of the formula, okay, because it brings it back to its original design.
It can't continue to grow.
It can continue to grow, but it's capped at 5% every recalculation, which is the way that the formula was originally built. And then a few years back, when they passed the casino loss limits being able to go away, basically, they thought there would be a rapid infusion of dollars, so they took the caps off. The infusion of dollars didn't happen, but the caps allowed the adequacy target to grow at a much faster rate than the 5%. So all this does is it takes it back to its original design. 5%. At a 5%, and it retroactively applies it to all those recalculations, so that pretending that other law never went into place because the revenue never showed up, right?
And it will affect us.
It won't affect us bottom line anyway. Any dollar amount. All it does is it takes the formula from a $500 million gap to about a $175 million gap, which actually, in my mind, makes it a better formula because it's achievable, number one. And then also, once it's funded, once it hits a funding level, then early childhood would be eligible to be thrown into the formula. So we might be able to access state dollars to support early childhood potentially at that point. And it also makes that formula conversation that several are having of, is it time for a new formula, go away and be kicked down the road, because if it's $1 billion underfunded with no cap on it, continues to grow, that's where we were with the old formula, and then lawsuits happen, and then all of these things play out, and then we go through the really bloody experience of creating a new formula, which typically won't probably work for us, work well for us, because the one that we have built right now is a needs-based formula that benefits us. We just have to get it funded a little higher. So personally told Senator Wasson I support his bill. It makes the formula more sustainable, more of a long-term approach, and it probably will allow us to access early childhood at a more rapid pace. There are other things we're concerned about that are moving through, working with several different legislators, working with Representative Wood on his bill. He would actually cap summer school hours at 180, and we have several hours beyond that we're planning for this summer that's always been allowable for decades. So there needs to be some kind of cap on summer school, but we're working on what's the right way to do that, and giving districts notice in order to make that happen. They still want enrichment for all, and we also want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all students in the summer.
Is that just a
continuing learning.
financial?
It is, right, because to be honest, there are ways that you can manipulate that dollar, and there's some systems that I think are strategically recalculating their hours and assigning them in different ways. So this allows them to get a little more definition of what the real expenditure could be around summer school. So we're supportive of getting that structure put into place, but in a reasonable way. So working on language on that bill with the representatives Wood and Senator Wilson. Lincoln Huff, I've been in contact with him. He's helping us on the House side also. So those two have been very good hands in this conversation. So, Jill.
On the Wood one, I hear you saying you support the concept, but not the number he has in
Yeah,
there.
the 180 concerns me because we're we're running 240 plus. We're running full June and July, and we have a lot of kids. We know the summer slide data, right? That if
Is
we
it
don't,
arbitrary too? Is that just arbitrary?
yeah,
what
they
they
just
came up
because there's no cap right now, so they've come up with a number, right? And 180, I think, is 6 weeks. So that's a ballpark 6 weeks. So we're talking about what's the right number.
with? Is there an opportunity to move that?
100%. Yep, that's the conversation actually had with Representative Huff last night of 240 maybe being the full target, and maybe even staggering it for those kids. Is 240 necessary for every student, or is it necessary for 180 for a base and then extended for those are behind grade level, so an extended number, so maybe another 60 on top of that. Those are all conversations that are kind of being tossed around of what's the right formula for a summer school to make it manageable, predictable, and achieve the state's results of getting the dollars to the best place for students. So
So where we land is going to mean that we will have to adjust what we have just created.
it would impact our design going forward, essentially trying to work to make that it wouldn't impact this year, because all districts are already planning and implementing, right? Kind of an unfair implementation, unless the number was so big that it didn't impact us, then, so those are the moving parts that we're working on right now with our representatives.
Thank you.
And the only other one I would tell you that is also exciting, House Bill 2188, which is Lincoln Huff's bill on early childhood taxing authority locally, was perfected, actually, I do believe today. So further along in the process, just needs to be third read and approved, and then it would leave the House, and then it needs to go to the Senate.
That's our ability to go for a levy.
Right, that's the
Enabling
Greene County
legislation.
areas taxing authority bill. It doesn't enact any tax or revenue, it just
Yeah.
gives you authority, right?
Imagine it being so controversial when all of this is an opportunity.
I think it's been, and I'm not sure, I don't want to speak to that, but it may be packaged with a few other taxing authority bills from other districts, not school districts, but other areas around the state, cities, municipalities, counties, that also need taxing authorities for things that they're working on. So, Jerry.
Question, back to the summer school. Is that, or your feelings, is that a purely financial bill, or is it a backdoor summer school scheduling for school year process that could be done because you're only limiting your hours that you're gonna get funded for, so you're not gonna do it? I thought it was a funding, but
there were some other strategies that were on that around school start date, and for the most part, those have kind of fallen off the conversation at this point. I think it's purely foundation formula, stabilization, predictable revenues, making sure that no one's working the system in an inappropriate way and putting some caps on that, so nobody would ever do that. So those are, there are some other things in that bill that actually take us down to just 1,044 hours as the requirement. It removes the number of days. Currently, it's 174, or it's 100, or you can go to a 4-day week and go 172. You can go less. Takes days completely off of it and just goes to a pure hours calculation. So there's a few other things in that bill. It also has the 2% maximum of assessment time, state assessment time, which is a roll down of ESSA. Multiple things in that bill still to be worked out, long ways from done. It is through House committee, would be coming up on the House floor sometime soon. It's not on the calendar, at least it wasn't as of last night yet, but it could come up at any time.
What is that again? What's the number?
1943.
Okay.
So that one, as well as Senator Wasson's bill, seem to be the vehicles of education legislation. Right now, we're trying to keep them very simple and focused on these things and not make them omnibus bills. I know Senator Wasson is determined to make that happen and keep it clean, and really his really just focuses on the caps and getting the caps off. It doesn't go into the summer school aspect. It doesn't go into any of those things. The only other thing that he did have amended onto it, just for your knowledge, is one other representative. It allows the charter schools and others that are in unaccredited districts to access preschool funds just like this public school district, the regular public school district would be able to, which was the intent of the original law. They just didn't spell it out very clearly. Has a $6 million projected fiscal note if all of those charters within those unaccredited or provisionally accredited districts took advantage and enrolled all their kids that were eligible by the classification into early childhood. So Jay's bill is down to those two things. Sorry, you've way more detail than you care to know, I'm sure. So it is that time of year. Spring break is coming for legislators next week, I do believe. So if there are things to share and have you engaged in conversations, I'll try to let you know by the end of the week, because while they're back in town, it's a great time for us to get together and have small conversations with them about the future of these bills and how they affect us moving forward. So
Outside the polling place today, there was a young woman collecting signatures for early childhood, was it? Do you know which issue that is?
that would be the constitutional amendment. Raise your hand for
Raise your hand for kids.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
okay.
tobacco tax initiative
Oh,
that's
okay.
out.
So there are multiple different early childhood kind of conversations going on. The formula access, obviously our bill as a local taxing authority to run something within Embree County. And then there is the Raise Your Hand for Kids, which is a tobacco tax increase. That's just starting to get legs, and signatures are being collected statewide. And that's a individualized revenue stream isolated into a fund that the state wouldn't have control over, but be managed by a board that doesn't exist yet, but it's described in the law.
Separate
kind of.
from a public school board.
Early childhood DESI.
You got it. That's
Childhood Commission.
yes, it would be, yeah. Not necessarily yet. Several of you have heard the conversation. There are overall, I think, supportive early childhood expansion. There are other things to consider as part of that. That I think before I would be ready to recommend that or ask you to recommend that, a full presentation as well as the other aspects of effects, details. And that's something that we've talked about, that maybe after signatures are done, if they get to the ballot, we'll bring that presentation for you to ask questions potentially and have a little more information. So,
There was a person at MSU asked me to
There you
sign
go.
it, and I thought, well, I just need to know a lot more than I
There you
have
go.
time for. So, thank you.
so I think they have some stuff out on their website, and I think Jerry and I have a flyer from the MSBA that we could give to you to give you a baseline information, and then again, we can bring it back. Okay. Last thing, Missouri Learning Standards, for those of you who've been kept up with the conversation, I know Jerry, highly engaged. They were coming to the state board in March. That's been delayed to April just for information time, so that they have plenty of time to process the recommendations, I do believe. So that note came out from the department recently. So I don't know if you have anything additional on that, Jerry.
Additional with
Yeah,
that.
we know
Not
that it's been
surprised.
delayed till April. I think that's everything that kind of encompasses legislative conversation, so.
Great. Okay. Moving on to Board of Education discussion. At this time, does the board have any comments? anything you want to share that you've been out and about and part of? Jerry, you want to talk a little bit about the big grant
Oh,
that Springfield just
Last week,
received?
the Springfield Parents as Teachers received a really nice grant from the National Parents as Teachers Association of $250,000. Partnership with Every Child Promise to really help improve health services for our preschool, early childhood kids. And it's a huge plus for our system. Not just the fact we got money, but just the fact of the respect and credibility that our Parents as Teacher program has, not just in Missouri, but nationwide. 11 grants. We were the only one that had anything to do with early childhood across the country. So it was a big deal. I was really proud to be part of Parents as Teachers in the district that truly supports our early childhood programs and a community that's really stepping up now to support early childhood. So it'll be a great deal. Got 6 months to figure out what they're going to do with it and put a plan together. And so it's pretty exciting. I was really proud of Missy and Parents as Teachers and what they've done to get that off the ground. So it was a good day. It was a very good day.
Anything else, Bruce?
I was at Sequioto today to talk to fourth graders. They're going to do a project-based learning on famous Missourians, but they tied it to, they wanted to know how, if they came up with a name, that we could put it on our next new school based on, so they're going to take the project and researching Missourians and so on, and then, so they wanted to know that process, and then they're going to have some presentations at the end, and part of it will be to even research what the names of our schools are here, and what, we talked a little bit about some of those and where did they come from, and some were unique and some are just, we have no idea. We really don't have any idea that, and I'm not sure when their oldest elementary, I guess, is it Sunshine celebrated 150 years, but was there a Sunshine Street first, or was there a Sunshine School first before the street was named? I mean, and then the street was named. It really was, it was 3 classes, and they did a great job, and just as usual, some of the things are, when you go back in, the first thing they're lined up and one kid throws up on the floor, So it was, just, and so it just is, they're in line and they're sick, and, and all the other kids just kind of move away and walk past it, and it was just like,
Sawdust.
this is every day that this, we just kind of move over and you
That
go
is
there.
not what I expected you to
You
say.
go, well, it was just, I was standing right there and everybody just kind of moves around. We all talk and we all move on. It's just like, this is daily stuff that happens that we just think, oh my gosh, and it's just, everything moves right along. We talked about the naming of schools, so they're actually gonna have a date that they all then present their projects and vote, because I told them if they were in our group that recommended it, we would want at least maybe three names that they would come up with and so on. So that was good.
Are they using the History Museum for information? And the other is, there was a long-term staff member here several years ago that wrote the history of Springfield Public Schools. So you might mention that to the instructors.
Work's already done. We want them to have
want them to find it.
Some work. We don't want them to have all the ideas.
No, but they need to
It's a good
know.
resource.
They can search it out through the History
Good.
Museum.
Cool.
That's great
It was
fun.
good. Fun. Most of
Mostly
Except for that one part.
our part. Thanks. Anyone else? Any comments? Okay, let's move on to our upcoming meetings. So we have, our April meeting is April 5th, which is also Election Day. So something as we plan that agenda, we may want to keep in mind that we all want to vote before we come for our meeting, and maybe that'll be a short meeting. I don't
We
know.
got quite a bit on that one, just a few presentations,
Okay.
a few conversations.
So
Don't
be
forget,
sure-
you have books,
Don't promise us short meetings when it's not.
you have book study,
Yeah.
don't forget, so.
So vote
Read.
before you come to the meeting in the event it lingers or that it goes on for a while. So then on April the 13th, I think we have finalized our special reorganizational meeting, and that's April 13th at 5:30. Is that correct? Okay, make sure we have that down. In which we will be meeting for the swearing in of our new board members and reorganizing our board officers and getting ready to go for another year. Then we have our April regular meeting on April 19th. And so those are our meeting times. Anything else other than this Thursday evening is when the Kickapoo boys and girls play for in the state finals. And if they win Thursday evening, they'll move on to what, game on Saturday? in
I believe, yep,
Okay.
yeah, championships are on Saturday.
Those are fun games to attend. Anything else that, I mean, I know there's lots of other things going on, but anything between now and our April study session that you can think of? Anything else going on? Okay, all right. Move on to, please take a minute if something this evening was worked well or something you think we can do to improve. Please make a little note on your post-it and we'll put it on the board. And at this time, we do need to meet in executive session. So I'm asking for a motion that the board meets in executive session to discuss personnel and collective bargaining issues as provided in sections 610.021, 3, 9, and 13 RSMO. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Tim Rosenberry. Do I have a second? Annie Bush. And at this time, please vote. Thank you to everyone that attended, stayed with us this evening, and voting is complete, so this meeting is adjourned.